You and I are at an art gallery. We're looking at a piece of art, and you turn to me and say, "This isn't real. It's not real art." So I ask you, what is real art? Does your answer more closely resemble this or this? Did you not think of either? Amateur art is just about the most authentic art there is. You might think it's ugly, that it's not worth anything at all, monetarily or otherwise. But is this really worth more? Because the thing is, one is born of passion and love for the craft, the artist's creative desire, and the other is born of abstract concept. The thing that we have to understand about art as a general concept is that an artwork's success is dependent on its classification and its intent. In this video, I'll be using the terms high culture art and amateur art to illustrate my points. But let's define those terms real quick, because what even is high culture art? High culture refers to the subculture in which a society has identified the best of the best within the cultural arts. The artworks identified as being within this subculture are deemed exemplary among men's best creations, as well as being representative of a society's culture. If you've heard the term high culture and connected it to the terms high society or high class, you wouldn't be wrong to make that association. High culture is very much a subculture dominated by the ruling class as a means to separate themselves from the general masses. It's inherently a classist subculture, but it has an amazingly huge importance within popular culture. At a basic level, the intent behind the contemporary creation of high culture art is for that art to exist in spaces meant for high culture art, such as white-walled galleries or private exhibitions, and to be viewed by the people who are accustomed to seeing certain high culture artistic qualities in those spaces. In the past 100 or so years, those qualities have mainly boiled down to the question of, what is the artist trying to say with this piece? See, within the subculture of high culture art, the only art which is successful is that which is contrary to what is accessible for the general masses. An artist who creates what we call high culture art knows their audience, and they cater to that audience in order to achieve success. They choose to display techniques that are popular for that audience and use subject matter that they know their audience will find acceptable. In this way, high culture art can feel almost formulaic for a lot of expressive artists. It's not unlike mainstream digital media and the downward trend of unique stories and concepts. The arts have a tendency to equalize into a norm, and high art displays our current norm. That's not to say that the high art genre is bad. It absolutely has a place in our world, but it can tend to feel removed from the human experience, which some argue is the entire point of art itself. On the other hand, amateur art is the pinnacle of the human experience. The subject matter, inspiration, or creative vision, whatever you want to call it, is pure and genuine in its intent. Again, speaking very generally, I'm uncomfortably aware that every artist is different. The amateur artist wouldn't try to get their Undertale fan art into an exhibition at the MoMA, the MFA, or the Art Institute of Chicago. There is an awareness that those spaces are meant for a very specific type of art, so your average amateur artist wouldn't dare shoot for the stars in hopes to achieve some high art status. Instead, the amateur artist's sole intent is to indulge in their personal interest through art and, sometimes but not always, share that expression with an audience that they know would appreciate it. Some amateur artists feel this is unfair, that they're relegated to the back rooms of art spaces and not taken seriously, but others understand the difference between one art space, say galleries, and other art spaces like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or Discord. It becomes a bit of a problem when amateur artists challenge our cultural norms for thinking about and displaying art. The internet can be brutal. Everybody knows that. But it's so much worse when you instigate your own downfall and your very existence becomes the ammunition used to hurt you. Time and time again, artists like this get bullied off of the internet and out of artistic spaces because they foolishly decided to try and legitimize themselves by advocating for their artistic demographic. Do they deserve it? Not always. Most of the time it's rooted in good intentions. The artist is proud of their work, and they want others to see them like everyone seems to view high art. But it causes issues when they try to delegitimize artists who make high art in order to raise themselves above the rest. Is that banana on a wall good art? To most of us, no. It's pretty shit. But unless you find yourself a part of the audience that the artist planned for, then you weren't the targeted demographic anyway, so your opinion doesn't matter. Comedian by Maurizio Catalan was an absolute success of an artwork whether you like it or not. What made it a success wasn't the fact that it was talked about by people outside of that art space, it was a success before that. Before any articles were written at all, the concept for 2 editions of the work sold for a collective $240,000. I guess the point is that art is subjective, and I know that sounds like a cop-out. But the success of an artwork is subjective and dependent on its classification and intent. You're never going to have one artwork that's successful with every single demographic. Plenty of people dislike Leonardo da Vinci, Vincent van Gogh, or, and I hate to think this could be true, he's one of my favorites, Gustav Klimt. It's crucial to understand that artistic preferences and artistic value differ among audiences. And just because a certain artwork may not appeal to one group, it doesn't diminish its success or value to another. The example of Maurizio Catalan's Comedian illustrates this point, as it achieved significant success within its intended art space despite the controversy surrounding it. Ultimately, art is a diverse and multifaceted expression that should be appreciated and respected in its various forms. Whether it's high art or amateur art, the passion, creativity, and personal vision of the artist should be celebrated, while recognizing that different audiences may have different interpretations and preferences. By embracing the diversity of artistic expression, we can foster a more inclusive and vibrant art community. But that's just not how it works. In the age of the internet, human beings want to feel heard and seen. That means that opinions are shared, and if current observable trends are to be believed, one cannot simply disagree and move on with their life. It needs to be a fully fledged debate with a definitive right and wrong side. I know I'm not crazy here. You've seen it too. An individual posts art online, someone on Twitter doesn't like it, so they talk shit about the art. And either the artist or fans of the artist come to heavy quote-unquote defend the art by being even more hostile than the initial opinion-oriented comment even was. I still believe the point I set out to make, that all art is valid and should be appreciated for what it is. But creative spaces are not for the weak. Regardless of whether an artist exists within a high culture art space or a low art space or amateur art space, they will at some point or another receive uninvited critique regarding their work. The severity of what comes after is anyone's guess. If you're an artist who shares your work in any kind of space, any platform, stay guarded. You can't do anything to change the opinions held by others. I know your art holds great importance to you and you may feel a need to defend it to the death, but just focus on yourself. Do you like your own art? Are you happy with the result of your hard work? If yes, then you're successful. Hello there. This is my first serious YouTube video. It's sort of an experiment to see whether or not there's an audience that would watch and engage with the opinions that I hold. It's funny. I remember going to Walmart with my parents when I was 11 years old and begging them for one of these. I thought YouTubers were so cool and I wanted to be just like them. Well, my parents said no, and I never got one of those camcorders. My first device capable of recording video was my first smartphone, the iPhone 5C. But by the time I got that phone, I was 16 and YouTube had changed quite a bit. I still wanted to give it a shot, but with a lack of ideas combined with general apathy regarding social media spaces, yeah, no videos. Now I'm 25 and even more time has passed. The fact that it took me so long to make even one serious attempt at video creation makes me feel really, really sorry for my past self. If she knew it would take 14 years for it to happen, I'm sure her passion would be crushed right then and there. Not because she didn't end up as an influencer, but because she let her apathy override her creative endeavors for well over a decade. Anyway, I'm trying to see if I can get into the YouTube Partners Program. Woo! Maybe I'm trying to prove my apathy wrong, and that whatever I make won't just end up as a fart in the wind. I don't know. I've heard that asking viewers to subscribe actually makes a difference, so subscribe. Okay, bye.